Hello and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host, trying to catch up with my episodes. I've been so busy lately that I haven't been able to edit my latest interviews, and I'm sitting on a few. But I'm hoping to get a few more done over the Christmas period, as we won't be traveling this year, sadly. Well, at least I'll have some time off work, and I'm looking forward to dedicating some of my break to my podcast. I have recently added a donation option on my website. You might have seen it, and I'll try and push that a little bit more. If you're feeling charitable, Christmas spirit and all that, then you might want to consider making a donation. You can find the donation button on my website, transcontinentaloverload.com, which will take you to the donation page, or you can go straight to the donation page at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/tcoverload. And the links, of course, are provided in the show notes. My charity of choice is Refugees International. As an expat, I know what it's like to leave your home country and all the people and things you know and love behind, and how lost and heartbroken it can make you feel. But I can't even get close to imagining the absolute terror, sadness and desperation that refugees have to go through, dealing with a new place that is not welcoming, and knowing they'll probably never see their home country again. Any donation is hugely appreciated. Talking about non-welcoming, hostile environments, I've found that there seem to be a lot more xenophobic incidents these days. It feels like it's getting worse and worse. But is it really happening more? Do we just hear more, experience more through other people and other people's social media posts? I don't know, but it really upsets me that there is so much fear, distrust, and sense of cultural entitlement. I read someone's post about a parent WhatsApp group in Germany that went completely off the rails, discussing the importance of sticking to German Christmas songs and traditions at school rather than include other cultures' contributions. And I was horrified by the comments. So much fear, ignorance, and lack of curiosity and sense of cultural enrichment. Someone who really understands this, and with her work is trying to open people's eyes to the immense benefits that cultural exchange and acceptance of and interest in other cultures actually have, is today's guest. I am talking to Rachel Stewart, host of the YouTube show Meet the Germans. Rachel is a multimedia journalist based in Cologne, Germany. She grew up in the UK, studied languages, although not German, and met her future German husband during her Erasmus year abroad. Just before the Brexit referendum over 4 years ago, she left her job in London and secured a place on the trainee scheme at Deutsche Welle, Germany's international broadcaster. For the past 2 years, she has been presenting Meet the Germans and has recently launched an accompanying Instagram account. You can find all the links in the show notes. Rachel has my absolute dream job. I am so jealous. If you haven't heard of her and the show, I highly recommend checking it out. The videos are informative, educational, diverse, and above all, delivered with a wonderful sense of humour. Of course, she's British after all. And some are even presented as a rap version or in the form of a poem. Rachel and I had a lot of fun picking apart the Germans and their quirks, cultural differences and similarities between Germany and the UK, and, of course, some observations on what it's like to be an outsider in a new country. And I hope that we won't get hate mail for not getting all the fuss about asparagus. But enough from me. Let's hear Rachel's story. Welcome, Rachel. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
It's always really nice for me. I mean, I love meeting new people with their own expat story and, how they ended up where they are, but also because you're in Germany. And so for me, and you're a Brit in Germany. So for me, that's like a double whammy, because obviously Germany is still my country, even though I haven't lived there for so long. And then I also lived in the UK for 13 years. and I'm married to an Englishman. So there's a lot of similarities, and it's always nice to talk to people with a connection to Germany. So yeah, I'm very happy to
So
have
anything
you
I
here.
say, you can give the other perspective on. That's good.
That's yeah. I mean, and now I feel like my perspective on things is it's just constantly changing, because I look at Germany now from a completely different point of view. I mean, you don't really think about your perspective on your country when you live there, but then you move and it changes. And
yeah, that's true.
And actually, that's how I found you, was educating myself on my country, because I had the idea of doing the podcast and just browsing the internet and YouTube and all those channels to find out what other people were doing, people living in other countries. And I found that there are quite a lot of channels that cover Germany, and so to me that was really interesting to see. And I love your Meet the Germans channel, because it's just hilarious. It's so funny because it adds the Brit perspective to it, and I think that's just a really unique one. And I mean, I know to some extent because I'm married to one, but also it's so educational. And to me, it was just really interesting to find out so much about my country and kind of go, oh yeah, that's really interesting. That's how we do it. So, but before we talk about the channel and how you ended up doing that, presenting that, let's hear your own story and where you're from and how you ended up in Germany.
Okay. Well, it was never the plan, I can say that. I studied languages at university. I studied French and Spanish, and I very much thought I would end up in one of those countries. And I went off on my year abroad and met a German guy who is now my husband. That was 11 years ago. And so I started, kind of as a joke, really, trying to learn some German. We didn't even think that we were going to last, so I didn't think it had to be too serious.
Yeah.
And then mostly just started, on the phone, sometimes trying to say some things. And the first time I came over to Germany with him was, I think I came once before, and then on my 21st birthday, I spent in his grandma's house in Sauerland. It was Easter Sunday, and she couldn't speak a word of English. I could speak barely any German. We were sort of eating cake on the sofa. I was trying just to try and blend into the background, really, with all the family. Ooh. And I didn't really know what was going on. But yeah, basically through like family gatherings and things like that, where you're forced to try and talk to people, otherwise you won't be talking. That kind of just gave me a bit of a motivation, and I moved over to Germany for a few months after I graduated, just to test it out, and I worked in an Irish bar.
Mm-hmm. So where did you meet? Was your exchange year during university? Was that in Germany or
no? So because I studied French and Spanish, I had to choose one place in France and one place in Spain. Instead of mainland France, I decided to go a bit more exotic and went to La Réunion, which is next to Mauritius.
Oh wow!
Which technically is part of France. It's still part of the Erasmus program. You still get all the extra funding to get over there. Great. But it was just this beautiful tropical island, basically.
A little bit more exotic. Yeah,
exactly. Why not? I was there for about 5 or 6 months, and I was studying, and my now husband he didn't have to go and do a year abroad, but he just wanted a break basically from his maths studies. So he chose to go there as well with a friend. And yeah, that's where we met. There was a group of about 20 or 30 foreign students on the island at the time. And we had a whale of a time.
I bet.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then after that, I went off to Spain for 6 months. He was in Madagascar for a bit, and then back in Germany. Then I had another year back in Bristol for the final year of my degree, and he was in Germany. So it took about another year and a half before I finally was in Germany for a bit.
So and that convinced you that you'd like to give that a go and see what it's like living there.
Well, interestingly, it convinced me of two things. It convinced me that yes, I liked Germany and I could imagine maybe living there, but it also convinced me that I needed to have my own life if I was going to do that, and I couldn't give up on what I had been planning to do before. So the reason I then left Germany again and went back to London, back to my hometown first and then to London, was because at that point, I couldn't see myself getting into the industry that I wanted to, which was journalism, because my German wasn't good enough, and there wasn't that much opportunity for English language work at the time. So I said, well, I need to go back to England, continue my studies in journalism, get some kind of qualification there and some experience, and then see if later on at some point I can marry the two things. No pun intended. But yeah, I did manage in the end. Took a while, but yeah.
Yeah, so you had a long distance relationship for a while, by the sounds of it. And so did your now husband, did he ever consider moving to the UK, or was that not on the cards?
People ask that a lot, and to be honest, no, I don't think really either of us thought that might be a possibility. I think I have always been more interested in living somewhere else anyway. He loves to travel, but he also loves going back home to Germany at the end of it. Whenever we go on holiday, he always says at the end, really looking forward to being back in Germany now, just because it's, it's just so familiar and comfortable, I guess. And it's a great country. Why not?
It's but I get that a lot too when people, and I haven't lived there for it's like 20 odd years, 22 years I haven't lived in Germany. Wow. And people are still like, why are you not coming home? And it's very unusual really for Germans. I know a lot of people who have moved and then returned to Germany and even returned to where they're from, like their hometowns or around there, which is a really interesting concept. Yeah, I haven't, so I'm kind of the exception. But
maybe one day you'll wake up and think, now's the time.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? I mean, yeah, they'd love it. I think, but I've lived abroad for so long now that I kind of feel I'm probably going to end up having two places, or my family, because we're all going to be spread out. I kind of feel like we're not going to have just one home.
But the interesting with you is that you're living in a place that belongs to neither of you, right?
Yes. And that was also very interesting because when we first got together, so I'd moved to the UK to do my master's, and that's where I met my husband. And then he was very keen to move to Germany because he hadn't lived anywhere else. And he was like, let's move to Berlin. Let's do something. And I had only just left Germany, and I was like, no way. I don't want to do that. And so I guess, and then we just worked in London. And then I think after that, he was just like, and then the opportunity to move to the US came up, and I never thought I'd be there for longer than 2 years or 3 years maximum, but it kind of suits us that it's neutral ground, and nice. It's really, we had to discover it together. And so, we're both, he's an American citizen now, so he's got dual citizenship, but it's that there's something to be said for being somewhere it's neutral.
Definitely. I remember at the beginning of our relationship, we actually discussed what would be possible countries for a neutral ground. And because we'd met on La Réunion and we both speak French, we discussed maybe somewhere, with a German-French border, something like that. Or maybe somewhere like, Switzerland could be an interesting option for us. But then that just kind of got forgotten at some point. The more I fell in love with the German language and with Germany, it became sort of obsolete.
Well, you never know. You never know. Things might change.
But now my French is too bad, so.
So how was it to move to Germany? And then, so you said you'd had some exposure in terms of like family and being kind of thrown into the language and the culture. And then, so how tell us about the early days of actually living there.
It was a lot of back and forth, definitely. So maybe that was helpful in that it wasn't just I moved once and never went back and never went anywhere else. That might have been probably a bit more being thrown in at the deep end, I think. I spent quite a few times, I was just there visiting when my now husband was carrying on studying here. So I spent, sometimes weekends, sometimes a bit longer. And then I had the first time I lived here was, I think, 4 months where I was working in an Irish bar and in an English school. And that was, another good test. But of course, I wasn't speaking that much German because I was teaching English and working in an Irish bar. And then the next time I came over was a bit more sort of serious, you could say. I think I was there for it was just over a year. And we were living in quite a small town, Neuss. And I was working from home because I was working for an English website. And I found that slightly isolating because I didn't really have any reason to go outside.
Yeah.
I didn't have any friends particularly, or not my own group of friends. I wasn't working anywhere physically.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this town, and it was a small town anyway. I really remember walking through the town sometimes and thinking, oh, I wish there was more of a cafe culture or something here, so that I could just sit down and people watch or something, but it wasn't really present there. So I found that one quite difficult. Yeah, so that was the time of living in Neuss. Then I was back in the UK for a few years, and then finally the opportunity came to move very much also on my terms. I had a job that I wanted, that I was looking forward to, that was exciting. We would be living in Cologne. I love Cologne. It's a great city. I think it's a really good size. Moving from London to somewhere really small, I just don't think would have worked.
Yeah, it's a complete shock, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the job I have is based in Bonn, and I don't think I could have moved from London to Bonn. That would have been too much. But yeah, moving to Cologne was a really good next step.
What was the job?
So the job was at Deutsche Welle, so that's Germany's international broadcaster. And it was initially a traineeship, which I had actually seen advertised many years ago, back when I couldn't speak German. And I was Googling around and thinking possibly about moving to Germany one day, but knowing that it would be really difficult in my industry. And then a few years later, it came back on my radar somehow. And I thought, oh, maybe I could actually apply for that now, because I do speak German. It's not great, but it's getting there. And they were keen to get some English native speakers on board at that point.
Fabulous.
And
yeah,
so like, yes, it's useful. And the traineeship just looked really great because it's very much multimedia. So it was a bit of radio, a bit of TV, social media. You got to go to the Auslandsstudio, so the what do you call that again?
I love it. I love. Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. And then you can't speak any language anymore, and your mouth just goes, well.
It's like make something up in between. Yeah, so basically their studios abroad. You got the chance to go to one of those for a placement. You got to do placements in different departments. It just sounded really exciting. And at the time I was feeling a bit restless in my job in London, and feeling like I wanted to make a change anyway. So I applied. I actually, the order of things was slightly wrong, because I quit my job before I applied, which was probably the wrong thing to do.
Well, but sometimes that kind of thing adds that push. Like I'm really gonna give it my all.
Definitely. I mean, I'd said I'm going to leave my job anyway. I'm going to use that, like you said, that motivation to find something new to do. But I'm very glad that the first thing that I tried did actually work out, because I'm not sure how I would have taken to the freelance life, struggling to pitch ideas all the time.
Absolutely. And especially when you don't know a country professionally that well yet, and just but that, I mean, sounds like the absolute dream job. And I mean, I watch the videos, and they are just it's just so fun, and it looks like you are having such a good time doing that.
Yeah, definitely. So, it's really great, and it's something that I couldn't have done before, simply because I didn't have the skills. So doing the traineeship, it gave me a much broader set of skills, and then I was able to pick the things that actually I think I was quite good at, even though I hadn't realized it before. I'd never been on camera before. I'd never presented anything. I'd also never cut any video before, and I just realized that was something actually I really liked. So yeah, that turned into Meet the Germans.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, the topics, I would say, cover everything from weird customs, food, sometimes politics, history. There's so much in there, and it always has that sense of humor that comes through, which I really love. But also, it's so informative. I love the one about the castles, and you interviewing some Graf so and so, and it's just wonderful. But by the way, your German is absolutely amazing. I mean, considering that you only kind of came to it quite late. I was very impressed.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you find it informative. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, well, as I said, when I left Germany, I kind of feel like I didn't really know that much about my country. Actually, I've learned more since I've lived abroad.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, it's very interesting, because we have we make the videos essentially for people not in Germany.
Yeah.
Of course, we also then get a lot of interest from people who've moved here from elsewhere because they've also been noticing some of the same things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also we have a lot of interest from Germans themselves because,
Of
like
course.
you said, you don't realize that something is unique or different unless
Mm-hmm.
you see it through an outsider's eyes. And I think actually one of the things I've been so positively surprised about is that Germans like that. They don't
Mm-hmm.
see it as me coming along and criticizing them, which is good because I'm really not. I'm kind of marveling at these things and saying, wow, look at that. Not in a they're doing it wrong kind of way, but just to point out how unique it is and how interesting it is, basically. I mean, one of the things I had in my last video was, these wooden Zollstocks are like a measuring stick that folds up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just in every single German house. It's completely normal.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I sort of pointed it out, and my producer was like, you can't talk about that. That's just completely normal. But then I put it in the video. I said, no, I stuck to my guns. I put it in. And in the comments and in YouTube, you can see, yes, I've always wondered about those wooden sticks.
Yeah, but no German would think that other countries don't have that.
No,
or they
exactly.
do it differently. And yeah.
The great thing about posting these things online is that then you get more information from the people who watch it. So today someone on Twitter posted a picture of, I think it was the place where the person who invented the Zollstock was born, and there's this giant Zollstock statue in that city, which I didn't know about, so I'll have to go and visit.
I have no idea. And that is exactly what I think we just really need in today's world anyway, that just opening up people's horizons and it's as simple as that. It just knowing that that these things are, you take them as a given, but they're not in other countries. And as I always find, it's like, even when like my in-laws from the UK visit here, and they don't realize, or now they do, but they never kind of thought it was not normal to drink tea all day long and have tea with every meal. And here it's like, I mean, people in the US don't, I mean, there's a little bit of a tea culture, but not really. And they don't, it's just very different. And you wouldn't drink tea with your lunch, and it's just not done. But for them, it was like, oh, is that, so just little things like that. It's like, yeah, that's uniquely the UK.
It took me quite a while to get out of the habit when I was here, of as soon as a guest came over, my first sentence being, would you like a cup of tea? Yeah. I've now managed to iron that out, because everybody would just say no, so there's no point in offering them. Or if they say yes, they then get a shock when you give them what I would call tea, because they were expecting like a chamomile tea or something.
That's so funny. Yeah.
So yeah, I've got rid of that habit now.
Are there any other things that you don't do anymore, or you just assimilated into your life that your friends in the UK would go, what is she on about?
I mean, I think in terms of eating and drinking, I've got very used to, actually no, I think I've done both sides. I am used to the German style breakfast with, salami and sort of meaty, cheesy, bready stuff. But in the week I stick to my normal cereal routine that I had back in the UK. So they're just little things that you adopt into daily life. And I think the point you were making about talking about these things, I completely agree. I think a lot of people, if they haven't watched the videos I do but know what job I have, they might immediately think, oh, you're just reinforcing stereotypes, or you're encouraging people to talk about the negative sides of a culture. But I actually think it's really important to talk about what makes cultures unique, because then you move away from a kind of nationalistic discussion where you're only proud of a country because it's your country, and actually you focus more on the exciting parts of a culture that I believe you really could and should be proud of, and they are aspects that don't exclude newcomers. And it doesn't matter where you were born, you can still adopt these cultural aspects and become part of that culture. Sometimes my friends will say to me, oh, you're so German, because there'll be certain things that I've adopted that make me come across that have German cultural characteristics, and that's lovely. I think that's great.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, there's obviously you get the stereotypes and they crop up in the videos. And I think whenever you talk about different cultures and the customs in different cultures, that you have a certain amount of stereotypes that come up, and you have to have them, because that's how you reel in people, because people do want to see some of that. And there's a fine line sometimes where between, like you said, making fun of something or just kind of like, oh, that's just so strange, and also explaining how that came about and why the perception is the way it is. Yeah, and I think the Germans and English people are very keen to kind of highlight all those stereotypes, and it's just so rubbish, because I actually think we're quite similar. And that's so my husband said, ask her what she thinks are the biggest similarities, because he was so surprised. He'd never been to Germany before, and never thought he would have anything to do with Germany. And then since we were married, and he's kind of been thrown into it as well and met the people, and he's kind of like, actually it's all the things I thought was what was so German are not that different to the UK. So what's your view on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely say, in terms of if you come from a much more, a different continent or something, you will definitely find much bigger cultural characteristics. I think because we come from a little island in the north, and we sort of feel a bit separate sometimes. We always used to refer to on the continent. If you're going, I'm going to the continent for my holiday, and it's hardly far away at all. I mean, it may as well be joined up. And I think in terms of daily things to do with daily life, there's so many similarities, and also to do with attitudes. I think we're both quite pragmatic people. I think there's a lot of stoicism in Germany and in the UK. I think that weirdly we do share some humor traits, not necessarily in how perhaps we might have comedy shows on TV or something like that. I mean, sorry, but German comedy's terrible on TV and in film specifically. I don't go along with that kind of humor very well. But I think the appreciation of humor is really quite similar. And actually, I think that's why Germans enjoy Meet the Germans, is because they actually like humor, because they
absolutely
understand it and read it as well.
Like sarcasm and irony and all those things are very appreciated in Germany. And I actually think that definitely it's a different sense of humor, and German humor is very language based, I find, and that's why so much gets lost in translation, and Germans try to be too literal with what they say, and then it just doesn't come, that's not funny anymore. But the German language is actually quite funny. Oh, it can be really funny. At this point, I lost Rachel, or rather, Rachel lost her internet connection, which she had warned me might happen. And it took a couple of minutes until I got her back. And of course, this gave us our next topic of conversation, which is things that Germany does not do very well.
Hi.
You're back?
I'm back, and I've changed rooms to see if it works any better.
That's funny. It's honestly, it's one of the number one things that people say about Germany, how backwards it is in terms of the Wi-Fi and internet. Why is that? That's discussed so much on the internet as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's that's got to be one of the biggest surprises about Germany for sure, is
because everyone thinks it's just so advanced in technology and all that. But
and also that people complain about it day to day, but the fact that people aren't up in arms about this is so shocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
it's also good.
People still use cash and much more than credit cards, and I think people still fax things. So
yes, they do. I guess it's just part of the national psyche somehow.
Yeah, and that I think is a bit of a difference, because Germans, they like to complain a lot about things, as do the Brits. It's the complaint culture is huge in both countries, but that reluctance to try new things is much higher in Germany. Yeah, maybe stereotypical, but
that is true, I think. And I find myself getting frustrated with it here a lot. Things like, the reluctance to go cashless, the lack of digital infrastructure, that kind of thing. Also the reluctance to use social media. But the most annoying thing about that is that actually they've got good reasons for it. And you can't really argue against it when they say, well, you're just selling or giving your data for free to all these multinational companies. I can't really say that I'm not. But at the same time, I really miss the convenience that those things offered.
Mm-hmm. But then again, and you pointed this out in your latest video, people have their names on their on the signs of the door, and it's like, yeah, so they do share a lot of personal information actually without realizing that they're doing that.
But try and find them on Facebook, and they'll be called like Ra Tu Le something, or their names split up into 3 syllables.
Yeah. So it sometimes doesn't really add up. But anyway. Any other things that you can think of? Any like similarities or huge differences?
I think other similarities probably. I mean, I guess our sense of family is probably quite similar in that I think it's important, but might look to certain cultures less important because, for example, you know, it's fairly normal for kids to leave home when they go to university, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's not particularly normal to have a sort of 3-generation household. So it might, in cultures where the family very much stays as a family unit. Mm-hmm. I've certainly seen that in comments on YouTube that they think that's sort of surprising that Germans are so apart from each other in terms of family. But I think the sense of family is there. And
are encouraged to go their own way and spend time abroad and just kind of like leave the nest is definitely a push to that. Absolutely. And then then you end up on different continents.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's actually really normal for Germans to go very young, right? Mm-hmm. And do like a year abroad when they're maybe during 15 school, or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
That's, very brave.
Do you have any it's like when you moved to Germany, you said you'd been learning German for a while. Can you think of any like funny or embarrassing linguistic moments?
There's definitely been a lot. They're usually just little things that are so little that people don't really feel the need or they don't want to correct you, which actually makes it worse because then you just carry on making those little mistakes. And I think the one I always think of that just annoys me so much that no one ever told me was pronouncing J, because I knew, in German the J is pronounced as a Y. Mm-hmm. Generally. So I would just do that for every word. But of course, words that have been taken from another language, for example, English, like joggen for jogging, or job, you don't change the sound of the J. But I was walking around saying job and joggen.
Why no one corrected you?
No one corrected me. And my job obviously is journalist. And I was telling everybody I was a journalist for a really long time because no one told me that's not how you say it.
Very unusual though for Germans not to correct you. I have to say.
Yeah, true.
That's interesting.
Maybe they just were enjoying me slipping up.
Feeling superior.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, let's talk about the YouTube channel, Meet the Germans. Let's talk about your videos. Do you have a favorite one that you did? Or can you like what, or just maybe a really interesting experience where you're like, wow, I never thought this was possible?
I'd say the first one that sticks in my mind is small talk, because not because the video itself is in a spectacular location or anything, but because of the reaction I got to it. It was the first one that sort of blew up a little bit, and where people. It was as if I'd pulled back a curtain and people had gone, oh yeah, and I'd pointed out things that a few people just hadn't ever really thought about before, especially among Germans. And that was a really good example of the positive reaction to having something shown to you about your own culture. They could have reacted negatively to it and said, no, you're completely wrong, but actually everyone was really open to seeing things in a slightly different way. So I really enjoyed that. In terms of having fun, I loved the asparagus one because, first of all, we got to run around on an asparagus farm. That was great. And I got to dig up some asparagus. I'd never done that before. But also because it was the first time that I did a poem as a video, which obviously was a slightly crazy idea.
I'm totally gonna link that direct link. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna put the link in the show notes, but that one in particular, because that was just fantastic. And I mean, to the listeners who are not familiar with the asparagus Germany connection, I mean, Germans are obsessed with asparagus, white asparagus at a certain
particularly
time.
White, yes.
White asparagus is it like May? It's kind of Spargel season.
Oh gosh,
it's like I think it is around that time, and I
think it's the end of June it finishes. Yeah,
maybe that's kind of varies slightly from region to region, and it's just because I absolutely I loathe white asparagus. So when I was growing up, I know that was always my kind of fear food. I just couldn't. I don't mind green asparagus, but the white stuff was never my thing. So that was never big on my list, but Germans in general are obsessed because it's that season. It's only around for a few weeks and then it's everywhere. You eat it, and sometimes you just eat that, right? You just eat asparagus with the special sauce and nothing else, and it's the best. And everyone just goes slightly crazy about it. So yeah, that video was so
that's
funny.
A really good example. That's an example of perhaps something that Germans do quite a lot, which is following a tradition without necessarily asking themselves why they're doing it. Because I'm just going to put it out there. If you actually just have a stick of white asparagus and nothing else, it doesn't really taste of anything. It's just a sort of floppy, slightly stringy vegetable, which doesn't really taste of anything. No. It tastes nice if you put hollandaise sauce on it, because anything tastes nice if you put hollandaise sauce on it, and lots of salt, and you eat it with ham or whatever. But everyone goes really crazy for it, and it's very expensive generally. But it's special, like you said, because it's seasonal. You don't get it all year round, and I just think people take part in that tradition and think it. I don't know. I just don't believe them when they say that they think it tastes great.
Yeah, the funniest thing I saw this year because of coronavirus, they I can't remember where I saw this. It's like a video, I guess, on YouTube. But I don't know at the moment. I can't think of where I saw it. But basically, they came up with drive-through option. So basically, people could didn't have to get out of their cars, and they could just put their order in and drive up and pick up their asparagus, because obviously, Corona's not going to stop Germans from eating asparagus.
Well, that's why I decided that one was going to be the one I would try and do a poem for, because I think it fitted with this sort of, ode to asparagus, sort of expressing the Germans' passion for this vegetable.
But then I think it's one of those traditions, and people just love traditions in Germany. I really feel, and right now obviously it was the 11th of November yesterday, which is, and it's, to me, it's just so bizarre because everywhere it's Veterans Day, it's Remembrance Day, but it's also the beginning of Carnival, and it's, to me, that's never made sense. And now, I mean, obviously you're in Cologne, which is like the epicenter of it. I guess I grew up in the south, and I was never that big on the whole carnival thing, but it's a huge tradition, and I mean, the internet was blowing up yesterday. All the German expat groups were going crazy because it's the beginning of Carnival, and it's just such a weird contrast to the other very pretty heavy Remembrance Day celebrations. And so there's some very bizarre traditions.
Yeah, the first time I remember being in someone's house or flat, we were all dressed up for Carnival, and when you put the television on and you see the stage, exactly, and when on the 11th, when at 11:11, when they officially declare Carnival season open, and I remember thinking, God, this is really weird. Back home, everybody's doing 2 minutes silence. But it's just, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything disrespectful, because, I mean, we all know the Germans spend plenty of time remembering the past, and the main days for that are just a different day in Germany. So, but it's just an interesting coincidence that those two things. It's so interesting,
and also it to me has always been that Germans in general are known for no sense of humor, which, I mean, it's not true, but and then it's like you have that certain time, and all of a sudden you hit a button and now it's time to be funny. And it just, to me, that's always been really funny to me, that kind of thought of everyone being really serious and going to work and doing their things and following the rules, and then all of a sudden that one day at that certain time, people go crazy.
It's really funny if you could just put a photo of sort of grumbly granny on the street, and next week she's going to be wearing a clown costume or something. If you could just put them together.
So we kind of talked about the annoying things like the lack of technical infrastructure and that kind of thing. Is there anything you really, really love about Germany? If you could pick one thing, what's your favorite thing?
There are many things I love about Germany. I think the best thing about Germany is their love of the outdoors. I think that, like no other country that I know well, they appreciate it so much to be out and about, to be connected to nature somehow. And I think that's also connected to the fact that they value this life-work balance. I think that they're quite big on that. Sometimes that means, family life, but it also means hobbies and sport, and just making sure that you do more than working your fingers to the bone. I think coming from a London office job where it was quite normal for everyone to just keep working and never go home, and it was sort of seen as a good thing if you didn't take a lunch break and you had your lunch at your desk. And then now, having worked in Germany for a few years, that's quite different, and people respect their lunch hour and actually sometimes take a whole hour and go and do something. And when they have the chance to go outside, they do, which obviously has been, we've seen that even more during Corona and lockdown or mini lockdown. The fact that, there's this need, this yearning to go outside, whether it's just going for a stroll or if it's getting a bit more serious and going hiking. Obviously camping, they love their camping, which I think I've finally come around to. Took quite a while, but I get it now. I get it.
Yeah. No, that's very true. That the whole work-life balance, and the fact that you still have, the shops are usually closed on Sundays.
I don't get that. No, I'm not there yet.
It's kind of part of it, though. It's that's time to go out and do things that are not going shopping and consumerism and all that kind of thing. But I always forget when I'm in Germany. I'm so used to everything being open 24/7, and sometimes I kind of yearn for that, have something a little bit more slow and more balanced.
I think that really there could be a happy medium between the two.
I think they've tried to during lockdown. They have encouraged shops to open, just to spread out the shoppers more, that they wouldn't all.
They certainly said that it was allowed, so legally they allowed it. But
did anyone do it?
Don't think it actually got taken up.
No, I think people are really wedded to that. That no, we're not doing that. So, is there anything you really that you really miss from the UK? About the culture, apart from family and friends, obviously, but anything cultural that you're like, why can't Germans do that?
Yes. Obviously, there's little food and drink type things, little comfort foods that I can't get hold of here. But one big thing is TV. The TV here is just really, sadly, not good.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I do try and give it a chance every now and then. I'll say, right, I'll stick on this film that's coming on, or this new series, but they all just kind of seem the same. The humor's very similar. It's very often something about murder in a small town or something.
Obsessed
I'm not just talking about Tatort, but even if it's not Tatort, it's usually got that kind of theme to it.
And it's the same actors. It's the same actors
actors, exactly. And then you've got the crazy quiz shows or challenge shows, which I know are really popular here, but I'm just not very keen on them either. And then you have sort of serious, heavy political talk shows, which can be super interesting in terms of content, but I think that the style is a little bit outdated, that it's always the same. It's always sort of 5 people in chairs in a studio. Anyway, so I miss the variety of British TV, that's for sure. And I really miss the pub. I miss a proper British pub. I miss pints. I miss pies. So, the 3 Ps. Pubs, pints and pies.
There is something to be said for pub culture, and just I mean, obviously that's a complete UK thing because it doesn't really exist here either. And I think my husband especially struggled at first, and he's kind of he has now, I mean, more difficult now with a virus, but he's trying to do that, getting people together on a Friday after work, just to go for a drink after work, just to have that sense of no one just goes home, and it just makes a difference. So that's a huge thing. Hang on, I just have to let my cat out of the room because he's meowing. Hang on, just a sec.
Yeah, no worries.
My pets like to hang out with me when I do podcasts. I don't know what it is, but they all come, and I'm like, oh, really? They've been running around like crazy. I don't know if you heard them, probably not, but
I just said one tiny little meow.
Yeah, pub culture. I get that.
Yeah, I think I was quite surprised by the fact that people don't generally after work go for an after work drink. I did miss that at first. I think there's some good things to be said for it, because in the UK sometimes you go to the pub for an after work drink and don't go home for several hours and don't have any dinner, so that's not great either. But yeah, again, we need to strike a balance in between.
Absolutely, because there needs to be that sense of, there's so much bonding that goes on at the pub after work. Let your hair down a bit, and it's just a big thing for people, I think, to see you outside of the work environment, but see a different side to you. And I think it's really nice, but like you said, sometimes that can just be too much, and then the pressure to be, and then you have to buy rounds, and that to Germans is also a big kind of scary factor. I remember that when I first moved to the UK, and then it's that you go out and then you expected to buy everyone drinks, and then they buy you drinks, and that for a German is such a I freaked out every time. It's like, oh my God, how many people and how many, and when is it my turn, and that kind of thing. It's so funny because it's like second nature to an English person.
Yeah. I mean, even if you really don't want to, you might not want to buy a round, but you will definitely offer to buy a round.
Yes, because if you don't, then they'll never let you forget that. And it's all in a very kind of jokey way, but also it does have a pressure there that I remember being in Germany, and my husband he wasn't my husband at the time, but it was like one of the first times he met my friends, and then we were at this restaurant, and then he bought a round, and people were freaking out. They were like, oh my God, thank you. And he was just like, yeah, that's all right, but I remember everyone kind of stressing and kind of like, oh my, what, but no, I want to pay for my own drink, because that's what we do. It's like Germans, it's just normal. The bill comes and everyone just kind of pays their own. And I remember that everyone's kind of just look of shock on their faces, and and it was almost like, no, it's fine, honestly. But it was
we did one episode all about love, and I interviewed some of my colleagues about their experiences of dating in Germany. And they were from lots of different countries. So I mean, we had someone from Syria, Israel, Australia, various different places. And the one thing that all of them said was the splitting the bill that just threw them. And that, just the fact that it almost seems entirely unromantic if someone asks, if the waiter or waitress asks, zusammen oder getrennt, together or separately, if you just immediately say separately, regardless of whether it's the man who's paying or the woman who's paying, it's not really about the gender roles, it's just sort of about the way it comes across to sort of split everything.
And it's completely normal in Germany.
Completely.
To me now, I've lived away from Germany for so long, it's I kind of it's a little bit abrupt and kind of unromantic, if you want, but at the same time it's very pragmatic, makes sense. No one's kind of
absolutely
indebted to the other person, and it solves a whole lot of, but I only had one drink and you had two, and that kind of stuff. But but
that's another question. If you split the bill, do you split it really like itemized, I had this and you had this, or do you go half? That's another, I think that's a good way of gauging how seriously, whether it's just being done as a pragmatic thing or whether it's being done as a money saving
well there's plenty of I kind of personally, I like the putting some money in before you go out, like everyone puts money in the kitty kind of
nice
thing. And then that's kind of then you have like this amount, and then you just buy things from there. But yeah, you always get one person who's like, well, I'm going to have the most expensive cocktail on the menu. So,
yeah. And then the poor vegetarian in the corner who can only eat like
that's right,
a mushroom.
Yeah, well, plenty of opportunity for blunders and an embarrassment, I guess. But on the whole, yeah, the pub culture and just pubs, old English pubs that have been around for centuries, and it's just such an atmosphere. And when you go in and you have the the sticky carpet and the low ceilings, and it's just a certain vibe. It's a lovely thing.
And also the variety of beer that you can get there, because that's quite unusual in Germany as well, to have. It's becoming more normal, but it's generally one or maybe two beers on tap here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the fact that in most British pubs you can probably get about 7 different beers, and you'll get your ranges of ales, of course. You'll get your cider, you'll get your lagers. Yeah.
Germany's very well. I mean, beer is it's just a complete separate topic. I think. Have you done an episode on beer and beer
that was
culture?
The very first one we ever did.
Yes. I haven't seen that one. I need to go back and do that, because that's such a. It's interesting because I just spoke to someone for this podcast and we ended up talking about craft beers and how it's changing even in Germany. So it's funny that we're talking about beer now, because I'm not even a beer drinker. So I'm such a bad German. I'm not really into beer, but it's kind of changing slightly.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's taking a bit more time here in Germany because, obviously because of things like the Reinheitsgebot.
Yes, the rules.
But strict rules of exactly what ingredients can be used. But I think that they're beginning to recognise that essentially that's where the market is going.
Yeah.
We interviewed a brewer for Instagram who had been quite a traditional brewer, but he's, experimenting. He managed to get a kind of, what's the word? An exception.
Yeah, Sondergenehmigung.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In order to put slightly different things in his beer and still call it beer. And that's quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. There's so much, and again, that's like venturing away from what you're used to and what the traditions are. So
exactly,
it's. I think it's nice, and as you said before, it's like always just kind of find that balance between keeping traditions and things, but also embracing the new. And I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely changing slightly. But so for you, like personally, I mean. Because I found when I first started writing my blog when I moved to the US, I was very much writing from the perspective of a European and kind of talking about all these crazy things Americans did and just kind of like, oh my God, it's like the first Halloween was such a big like, oh God, that's just completely crazy. And now I've lived here for over 10 years. Things are normal to me now. So I found that my perspective changed so much, and now I can't write about the crazy Americans anymore because I've become kind of one of them in a way, but just looking at things. How has that been for you? Because I mean, obviously you with the channel, the Meet the Germans, you point out the differences and it kind of like, oh, this is peculiar. But have you found that for yourself, it's changed your perspective just living there and you don't look at things from the same perspective?
I think I haven't quite got that far yet because I've only been here for 4 years now. So I think I still have this slightly outsider perspective. I think what's changed perhaps is my approach to pointing those things out. So I'm more aware now of my Britishness when looking at these things because, I've put some things out there and said, wow, isn't that different? And some people have reacted and said, no, that's just European or that's just not British. Everyone else in the world does it like that apart from you. So now I've got a bit more of a sort of broad perspective, I think, when I look at topics and when I look at German cultural aspects. And that's why I really like to go into the history of it and to go into the linguistic aspect or to look at why the things are the way they are, because then often you find out more about how else it's done in the rest of the world and you don't just come at it from your very small, narrow perspective.
And that's the wonderful thing about, I think, living in another country. And I've said this so many times before, I wish everyone had the opportunity to live in another country for a while. I kind of feel it should be mandatory. It should be like, after school, or at some point, everyone should spend a year somewhere else just
Definitely.
to have that experience. And I think it would make a huge difference. So I always like to do this at the end of an episode, to find out if there is anything that you do that, if you have a tradition that you do follow, or a recipe, something that you cook when you miss the UK, or when you kind of feel like you really need that connection to your home country. And is there anything that you do?
So I had to think about this, and I think my answer is a bit lame, actually. The problem is I'm a terrible cook, so I don't really go for the food aspect. As I've mentioned a few times, something I miss from the UK is TV. And I was thinking about it, and if I'm feeling a little bit down for some reason, if I'm just not feeling the vibe at that point in Germany, something I always go to is I'll put Gilmore Girls on Netflix. And I was thinking about why I do this. It's definitely partly because it gives me a connection to people who aren't here, because it's a show that for whatever reason, it connects me to my sister. It connects me to a couple of my best friends from university, my cousins, they love it. So it's kind of an in-joke between me and people who I really care about. And I also think it's partly to do with this, linguistic insider jokes that sometimes I'm not part of here. So sometimes there'll be cultural references brought up here that I can't join in with, and I can't, discuss that thing that was really big during high school here because I wasn't here. And I don't mind that at all in those conversations. I'm happy to listen and learn, but you can't really join in. And sometimes that's what you miss in friendship groups in another country, I think, this immediate connection with people because you have the same cultural references and because you can talk really quickly in your language and they'll get you.
Yeah.
That's sometimes missing. And I think that's something I get while watching Gilmore Girls.
That's so funny because Gilmore Girls is American.
I know.
But I totally get what you mean. It kind of takes you back to a certain time. And like you said, it connects you to your sister. And it's so fun. My sister is a huge fan of Gilmore Girls. And, just yesterday, my 14-year-old daughter said to me out of the blue, "Oh my God, I am so into Gilmore Girls."
Excellent taste.
And I'd never thought of watching that with her because I'm like, but that's kind of an old show now. I found it on Netflix or something, and she's watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, what season are you in? What episode are you in? Oh my God, there's something we can, and it's that connection. That's so funny. It was so funny that you mentioned that right when she said that yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, very good taste. I'm impressed.
Sometimes it's just little something that makes you feel that connection. Oh,
yeah, and you can't always say it's logical. I mean, if my husband walks in while I'm watching it, he just shakes his head in despair. He's like, "Why are you watching this again?"
Yeah, but also if he has watched it, then he would have watched it in dubbed in German on German television.
Yeah, exactly, and that is just
awful. No, I can't. Not allowed at all. No, I think it should be that. It's criminal. What it shouldn't be allowed. Yeah,
absolutely. But I've got a little bit more sympathy for dubbing since I interviewed the lady who does Angelina Jolie's voice in films.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, I just feel like I appreciate the craft a little bit more now. I kind of had never really thought about how much effort you have to put into, even in terms of translating the script. It's not simply translating; it's trying to translate in a way that also uses the shape of the mouths that are on the screen.
There's so much
things
to
like
it.
that, timing, everything, and trying to change it slightly to translate the meaning as well for a foreign audience. There's a lot more to it than I'd really given them credit for.
Yeah, Germans are very used to it, and I managed to persuade my mum to watch About Time. Do you know the movie About Time? It's a Richard Curtis one. It's actually excellent. It's much better than Love Actually. I know. I know. I never thought, that has its very special time and place. But About Time is excellent. So if you can, I think it's on Netflix. You should watch it. It's beautiful. And I persuaded her to watch it in English with the German subtitles, and she was blown away by how much she really loved the experience, because her parents are just, to them, they need to be able to watch it in a relaxed way, and so they don't want to necessarily read subtitles, and their English isn't good enough to really get the nuances, so everything is dubbed, and I just can't do it. So I persuaded her, and she really, really loved it, and she's like, oh my god, the difference is so incredible. And the acting, I think you just lose so much.
Oh, so much.
Because I would be surprised sometimes when people would say to me, oh, that movie wasn't very good, and I'm like, what? That was excellent. And then I realized that they'd watched it in a dubbed version, and it's so much just gets lost, and
of course.
But as you said, it's a craft to be a dubbing actor, to actually, and I don't know how people do it. Yeah,
we can respect them without necessarily wanting to watch it.
Let's leave it at that. Very good. And she had an amazing voice. Angelina Jolie's German voice is wow. Definitely.
Yeah, she was great.
Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been so much fun. I always love talking about Germany and Germans and the cultural differences and perspectives, but yeah, it's been really, really nice. And I absolutely recommend your YouTube channel. I think it's so helpful for people who are planning to move also to Germany.
We get a lot of messages from people saying that.
And I love that now that there's so much information out there, and it's so much easier now to prepare yourself for a move to another country because of all the information. Look at that when you're planning to move to Germany, and for Germans to get a bit of a different perspective too. So absolutely recommend it. Yeah,
it's a little bit hard to find this on YouTube sometimes because we're under DW Euromax is the channel. So and we publish videos every 2 weeks. But if people do want a little bit more every day, they can join us on Instagram. So we've got this account. We've had it for about 6 months now. It's been running, and it's just so much fun because I can cover all the things that I couldn't quite get into a video. Because sometimes you just notice something that's funny or interesting, but you can't make a whole 5-minute video about it. And now I've got this medium where every day I can say, look at that. We're a team of people putting it together, and we do stories every day. We do IGTV, we do reels now, we do photos. So there's a lot of it, but it's really fun, and the engagement is so great because you have instant communication with people. We do a lot of interactive. We ask our users questions, we do quizzes, things like that, and people write to us, and they're often quite open about things in their own lives, and they ask us questions, burning questions they've always had about Germany. It's really nice. I love the direct contact that we have with Instagram.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, same. Let me know if there's anything else you need from me.
Absolutely, and I will link to all the things we spoke about in the show notes, and people can find you. And thank you so much.
Perfect.
So that's it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll head straight over to YouTube and check out Rachel's videos. Of course, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, YouTube, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. In fact, it's one of the things I do when I get homesick. I go to YouTube and I watch videos about Germany by non-Germans, or sometimes videos by Germans about other countries. And in fact, one of my next guests is one of those YouTubers, a German living in another country. I can't get enough of the YouTubers. I really like watching those videos. After all, it's exactly what I'm trying to do. Show people how great it is when you mix different cultures, when you mix different perspectives. It's eye-opening, and it helps global understanding and curiosity about other people and other cultures. And to me, that's a wonderful thing. Before I go, I'd like to remind you to consider making a donation to Refugees International. As I said in my introduction, I've included all the links for that in the show notes. Any donation is appreciated. Thank you, and see you next time.